Today we are going to start with a very basic thing which you have to know, that is properties of argument and modulus. Mod z greater than 0 is the first property, which is quite obvious because mod z, which in physical sense means the distance of the complex number in the Cartesian coordinate system from the origin. Now distances cannot be a negative number, so it has to be a positive number or either it is a 0. So that is why when we are finding modulus of any complex number, its value will be a positive or a 0. Mod z equals 0 implies that x equals 0 and y equals 0. This means my z is actually at the origin. The second set of properties are that the real part or the imaginary part of a complex number is going to be less than that of the modulus, which is again quite obvious because my real part is basically if my number is z equals x plus iy is a complex number, then in that my real part will be x. X will be obviously less than root of x square plus y square, which is mod z. And same way y will also be, which is the imaginary part of z, less than that of mod z, which is root of x square plus y square. The third property, which is that mod of a complement of a complex number is equal to mod of the same complex number. So again, I know what is a complement of a number. If my z is equal to x plus iy, then complement of z will be x minus iy. If I want to find magnitude of these two, then for both of them it will be x square plus y square under root. If I have two complex numbers and I am multiplying them, that is z1 and z2 are the complex numbers, and I am multiplying these numbers. Now if I want to find the modulus of these two numbers, then that will be same as finding modulus of the individual complex numbers and multiplying them. As you can see over here, I am having the two complex numbers z1 and z2. I am taking modulus of them. That will be same as taking modulus of the individual and finding their product. Same goes for the division. If I have two complex numbers which are in the division, then magnitude or modulus of that division will give me the modulus of the individual's division. So these are the two properties which are related to argument. If I am having the argument of two complex numbers which are in their product, then the net argument will be addition of the individual arguments of the complex numbers. And if it is a division of the two complex numbers and I'm finding the argument, then it will be the subtraction of the two arguments of the complex numbers. To check out the reasons for these properties, let us consider the third form of complex numbers, which is the Euler's form of complex numbers. So we have written the Euler's form of complex numbers, which is z is equal to r into e raised to I theta, where r is the magnitude or the modulus of the complex numbers in the Cartesian plane and theta is the argument of the complex numbers in the Cartesian plane. Now let us say that I have two complex numbers, z1 which is defined by r1 e raised to I theta 1 and z2 which is r2 e raised to I theta 2. So these are my two complex numbers. If I want to take product of them, then it will be if I want to take product of them, then it will be simply z1 into z2, which will give me r1 into r2 into e raised to I of theta 1 plus theta 2. So if you observe over here, my r1 and r2 were the modulus of the complex numbers. If I want to find the product of these complex numbers, the final modulus which I am getting is the product of the modulus, which gives me the property of modulus. That is, if I want to find the modulus of a product of two complex numbers, then I take the individual modulus. So over here you can see that r1 is mod of z1 and R2 is mod of Z2. So that is why if I want to find modulus of the product of Z1 and Z2, that will be the product of their modulus. Same way, if I want to find the arguments, now theta 1 and theta 2 are the arguments of Z1 and arguments of Z2. So you can see there is an addition sign. So when we have product of two complex numbers and I want to find the net argument of that, then it will be simply the addition of the argument, which we have seen already in the properties. Same thing which we can apply it for division. For division, my Z1 by Z2 will become R1 by R2 e raised to I theta 1 minus theta 2. So that is why if I want to find modulus of the division of two complex numbers, then it will be the division of their modulus, and the arguments will get me a subtraction of the two arguments. Now the next set of topics which we are going to see are related to the engineering level. In the first semester of mathematics, mostly you will be having a topic on complex numbers. In that you have to know whatever we have dealt with, that is understanding what are complex numbers, the properties, the algebra of complex numbers, etc. From henceforth, these are the topics which will be coming in your engineering level. The first main topic it is De Morgan's theorem. So this is the very first topic which comes in your engineering level in complex number, which is called as De Morgan's theorem. Now De Morgan's theorem states that if I am having a complex number cos theta plus I sin theta and that number is raised to n, then I get some relation like this, which is cos of n theta plus I sin n theta. Now if you observe over here, whenever you have to apply De Morgan's theorem, the first thing you have to understand is that the angles inside the cos and the sin are the same angles. If you have one angle as theta and the other angle as phi, then that cannot be applicable over here. De Morgan's theorem, in both the cases, you need the angles inside the sin and the cos to be same. The second thing which you have to understand is that the first term, that is the real part, should be a cos term and the imaginary part should be a sin term. To understand clearly, if I am having sin theta plus I cos theta raised to n, then you won't be getting this answer as sin of n theta plus I cos of n theta. This answer is totally wrong. Now if I want to still apply it, then what I have to do is I have to take the allied angles of this sin and cos. So basically I have to have this theta change to some angle such that it can be written in terms of cos. Now that can be done using this formula, which is if I can write this sin theta as cos of pi by 2 minus theta plus I sin pi by 2 minus theta. So now you can see that the cos term is in the first place, which is the real part, and the sin terms comes in the second place, which is the imaginary part. And also one thing you have to notice is that the angles are same in both the cases. So now I can apply the De Morgan's theorem that states cos of n pi by 2 minus theta, which now is my new theta, plus I sin n pi by 2 minus theta. So this is how you apply your De Morgan's theorem. Now there are some corollaries which you have to understand of the De Morgan's theorem. The first states that if my z is cos theta plus I sin theta, then 1 by z will be written as cos theta plus I sin theta raised to minus 1. if I apply De Morgan's theorem inside, this minus 1 goes and multiplies itself with theta. So I have cos of minus theta and sine of minus theta. I know what is cos of minus theta, that is cos theta, and sine of minus theta will get me minus sine theta. So you have to remember that 1 by z, if my z is defined as cos theta plus I sine theta, is defined by cos theta minus I sine theta. The other thing which you have to know is, if I am having z raised to n where my z is cos theta plus I sine theta, then by De Morgan's theorem, then this becomes cos of n theta and sine of n theta. So if I want to find 1 by z raised to n, then it will be raised to minus 1, which gets me minus n theta plus minus n theta, which is cos of n theta into sine of, which gets me 1 by z raised to n as cos n theta minus I sine n theta. Now the thing over here which you have to now these two relationships will get me something very important, that is, if I want to find what is the value of cos n theta, then I can write it as 1 by z. If I want to, this result, particular result, gets me something very important, that is, if I want to find what is cos n theta. Now cos n theta will get me the answer as z raised to n plus 1 by z raised to n. Like, it is simply just addition of these two. And so if I want to find what is cos n theta plus cos n theta using these two, if I add both of them, okay, now this is after we have learned this property, you have to understand a very important thing which I can get from these two properties, that is finding what is the value of cos n theta. So if I add both of them, I get that it becomes 2 cos n theta after we have got ourselves familiarized with finding z raised to n and 1 by z raised to n, we come to the many, after getting ourselves familiarized with the two formulas of z raised to n and 1 by z raised to n, then we come to a very important conclusion from this, that is finding what is the value of cos n theta. Now if I add both these equations, I see that the imaginary terms gets cancelled out, and so I get as 2 cos n theta as z raised to n plus 1 by z raised to n. So in the similar format, if I just subtract these two equations, then I will get it as 2I sine n theta will get me z raised to n minus 1 by z raised to n. So these are the two very important things which you have to remember. These are the properties which will be helpful to you whenever you are having any problems related to this. So this is how De Morgan's theorem will help us to simplify certain problems in which we have division of complex numbers, multiplication of complex numbers, or complex numbers which are raised to a power of 100, 200 or something like that. So a De Morgan's theorem will help you to solve such problems in a very short amount of time. The first application of De Morgan's theorem which we are going to see is finding expansion of sine n theta and cos n theta in terms of powers of sine and or cos. So let us say if I want to find value of this cos and theta in terms of powers of sine or cos, then what I do is I simply consider this equation. This is nothing but writing the De Morgan's theorem, that is cos theta plus I sin theta raised to n is cos n theta plus I sin n theta. Now what I do is I expand this using my binomial theorem. So my binomial theorem will give me the values of this expansion, that is it will be nc0 cos raised to n theta plus nc1 cos raised to n minus 1 theta into I sin theta plus nc2 cos raised to n minus 2 theta I sin theta square plus nc3 cos n minus 3 theta into I sin theta raised to 3 plus so on. After this step, what we do is we try to find the real and the imaginary parts. So over here you can see that the first term is my real part. The other real part, I won't be getting a real part from this because there is a I over here. If you see the second term, that is going to be I square, which is minus 1. So that becomes my second real part. So minus I square is minus, so minus of nc2 cos n minus 2 theta sine square theta. And you will not get a real part from this, you will get it from this number which we have not shown over here. So you can see that you are getting alternate real parts as you expand the terms. So these are the set of real parts which you are getting. If you want to see the imaginary parts, this one is the imaginary part, so I take the I common. So the imaginary part becomes nc1 cos raised to n minus 1 theta sine theta. The other imaginary part you will get from the last term which is written over here, because I raised to 3 is going to have the value minus I. So you will have the term as minus nc3 cos raised to n minus 3 theta sine cube theta plus so on. So you have written the real parts and the imaginary parts from here. So whatever may be the question, like you have to find cos n theta or sine n theta. If you want to find cos n theta, then that becomes the real part over here, because you can equate it with this term over here, real to real. And if it is asked that you have to find sine n theta, then that's the imaginary part over here. So let us take a quick example of finding expansion of cos n theta and sine n theta. Let us say that I am being asked to find expansion for cos 3 theta. Now I know what is cos 3 theta basically, so let me just do it with the form which we have learned. So if I am asked to find cos 3 theta, then what I do is I write cos 3 theta plus I sin 3 theta, because of the De Morgan's theorem, can be written as cos theta plus I sin theta raised to 3. So I have to have a plus b the whole cube formula over here, which is cos cube theta plus 3 cos square theta with the I sin theta. Next term will be 3 cos theta into I sin theta the whole square, which will have I square sin square theta, and I square is having value minus 1. So it's getting me minus 3 cos theta sin square theta. And the last term is going to be I sin theta the whole cube. Now I cube is minus I, so I will have the last term as I minus I sin cube theta. Now next term is, next part what we have to do is you have to find the real and the imaginary. So my real term is cos raised to 3 theta minus 3 cos theta sine square theta plus I, the imaginary part, 3 cos square theta sine theta minus sine cube theta. So since I was asked to find the expansion for cos 3 theta, I will only write the real part. Now in this, if you see, now if they have asked that you have to represent this in only cos terms, then you can simply apply the formula for sine square theta in terms of cos square theta, which is cos cube theta minus 3 cos theta, and sine square can be written as 1 minus cos square. If you open the bracket, you will get cos cube theta minus 3 cos theta plus 3 cos cube theta, which gets me 4 cos cube theta minus 3 cos theta. So I am getting my cos 3 theta in terms of cos theta and powers of cos theta. Thank you for watching video. If you have any doubts, please do share in the comment section. For information, you can go and look it in the about page. It will also give you the schedule of the videos which will be coming up in the month. Do like and share and subscribe our channel. This will help make more videos like this on different topics. Do watch videos on other topics also. Thank you and keep learning.